The massive Imperial ship appeared without warning, materializing above Earth's atmosphere like a dark cloud blocking out the stars. Its size made aircraft carriers look like toys, stretching 15 miles from end to end. The ship's black metal surface absorbed sunlight rather than reflecting it, creating an ominous shadow over North America. Inside the United Earth Defense Force headquarters, Admiral James Drake stood before the main viewing screen, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. At 60 years old, he had spent 4 decades preparing Earth for this moment. The bunker, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, hummed with activity as officers rushed between stations, monitoring the alien vessel. "Sir, they're broadcasting on all frequencies," reported Lieutenant Wilson, her fingers flying over the control panel. "The message is being automatically translated." Drake nodded, his gray eyes fixed on the screen. "Let's hear what they have to say." The voice that filled the command center was smooth and artificial, clearly processed through translation software. "People of Earth, you have been blessed by the attention of the Galactic Empire, rulers of 300 species across 12,000 star systems. Your primitive civilization has been observed and deemed worthy of integration. Prepare for peaceful submission." "Peaceful submission," Drake muttered, shaking his head. "Typical." The message continued. "A diplomatic vessel will arrive in 6 hours to discuss the terms of your surrender. Resistance is not advised. The Empire has not lost a war in 50,000 years." Drake turned to his second-in-command, Colonel Peters. "Get me every major military leader on secure channels, and wake up the President." The next 6 hours were a blur of activity. Earth's defensive grid, hidden in orbit for decades, powered up silently. Ground-based laser arrays, disguised as radio telescopes, tracked the Imperial vessel's every move. Military bases worldwide went to high alert, but carefully hidden this fact from orbital observation. When the diplomatic shuttle arrived, it landed exactly where Earth suggested, in an open field outside Denver. Drake watched from a distance as the vessel touched down, its silver surface gleaming in the morning sun. It was smaller than the mothership, but still impressive, about the size of a Boeing 747. The Imperial delegation emerged with all the pomp Drake expected. Lord Vale, their leader, stood 7 feet tall, humanoid but with gray skin that seemed to shimmer. His ornate robes sparkled with embedded crystals, and a thin circlet of metal rested on his hairless head. 4 guards flanked him, each wearing armor that looked more ceremonial than practical. The meeting took place in a hastily prepared conference room. One side of the table held Earth's representatives, Drake, the President, and 3 other military leaders. The other side had Lord Vale and his advisors, looking down at the humans with barely concealed disdain. "Your species has potential," Lord Vale began, his translated voice smooth and confident. "The Empire can guide you to greatness. We offer protection, technology, and a place among the stars. In return, we require only absolute obedience." Drake leaned forward. "And if we decline?" Lord Vale's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. "Earth will be pacified. The Empire has perfected the art of subjugation over 50 millennia. We have never failed to bring a species into the fold." "Never?" Drake asked, allowing a small smile to cross his face. "Then you've never fought humans before. You think your species is special." Lord Vale's tone carried genuine amusement. "We have conquered creatures that breathe fire, civilizations that had mastered teleportation, beings that could reshape matter with their minds. What makes humans different?" Drake stood slowly, placing both hands on the table. "You gave us 48 hours to surrender. We'll use that time to show you exactly what makes us different. I suggest you watch Earth's historical records very carefully. Pay special attention to what we do to empires that demand surrender." As the meeting ended, Lord Vale turned back one final time. "You really think you can resist the Empire?" "No," Drake replied. "We think we can break it. You should run while you still can." The Imperial delegation departed, clearly unmoved by the warning. As Drake watched their shuttle ascend, he activated his comm unit. Begin Operation Thunderbolt. If they want to see humanity's potential, let's give them a demonstration they'll never forget. High above, Earth's orbital platforms silently tracked the shuttle's departure, weapon systems charging in preparation for what was to come. The Empire was about to learn why humans were different, and the lesson would be written in fire across the stars. The neutral station floated in space between Earth and the Imperial mothership, a small structure barely a mile wide. Built in less than 24 hours by automated Earth construction drones, it represented neutral ground for what would likely be the last peaceful meeting between humans and the Empire. Admiral Drake walked through the station's main corridor, his footsteps echoing against metal floors. 2 guards followed him, carrying what looked like an ordinary briefcase. The station's lighting was kept dim, matching Earth's preference rather than the Empire's love of bright, harsh illumination. "They're waiting in the main chamber, sir," Lieutenant Wilson reported through his earpiece. "Our sensors show they brought no hidden weapons, though their biomechanical implants could probably be used as weapons if needed." Drake nodded. "Good. Let's show them what they're about to face." The main chamber was circular, with a large holographic projector in its center. Lord Vale already stood there with 3 Imperial advisors, their gray skin almost glowing in the low light. They watched Drake enter with the same superior smirk they'd worn during the first meeting. "Your time to surrender is halfway done," Lord Vale announced. "Have you come to accept the Empire's generous offer?" Drake placed the briefcase on a nearby table. "Actually, we came to make you an offer instead." He opened the case and removed a small data crystal. "We've prepared something for you to watch." The Imperial delegates exchanged amused glances as Drake inserted the crystal into the holographic projector. The room darkened, and images began to fill the air around them. "This," Drake said, "is human history." The first images showed World War I. Soldiers in trenches, fighting through mud and poison gas, refusing to give up even in the worst conditions. The Imperial delegate's smiles faded slightly. "Primitive," Lord Vale muttered, but his voice carried less certainty. The scenes shifted to World War I, the massive battles, the strategies, the ultimate price of victory. Then came other conflicts. Guerrilla warfare in jungles, urban combat in cities, battles in deserts and mountains, and Arctic wastes. "Notice," Drake pointed out, "how warfare changes, how we adapt, how each new weapon leads to new defenses, and each new defense leads to new ways of attack." The images move faster now. The development of nuclear weapons, then the strategies to fight even under threat of total destruction. Space warfare simulations, theoretical battle plans against alien invasions, thousands of scenarios played out in war games. "We've spent our entire history fighting ourselves," Drake continued. "Every possible environment, every type of warfare, every strategy and counter-strategy. We've imagined and prepared for things your empire has never even considered." Lord Vale's face had lost its smirk. "These are impressive records. But the Empire's power." "Let me show you something else," Drake interrupted. The hologram changed to show Earth's hidden defenses, orbital platforms disguised as debris, weapon systems buried in mountain ranges, fleets of ships hidden beneath the oceans. "We've been preparing for this moment since we first looked up at the stars. Every science fiction story about alien invasion, every movie about interstellar war. They weren't just entertainment. They were preparation. Humanity has spent centuries thinking about how to fight enemies exactly like you." The holograms faded, leaving the chamber in silence. Drake stepped closer to Lord Vale, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. "This is your only warning. We've spent thousands of years fighting ourselves. Your empire has spent thousands of years growing soft from easy victories. If you start this war, we will finish it." Lord Vale straightened to his full height, trying to look down imposingly at Drake. "You think showing us videos of primitive warfare will frighten the Empire? We have technologies you can't imagine. And we have something you've forgotten. The will to do whatever it takes to survive. You've conquered 300 species. Well, we're species number 301, and we'll be your last. Drake turned to leave, then stopped at the door. You have 24 hours left to retreat. After that, we'll show you why every human war story ends the same way, with humanity's survival, no matter the cost. The Imperial delegation watched him leave, their previous confidence replaced by uncertain glances at each other. For the first time in thousands of years, the Empire faced something new, an enemy that welcomed their attack. In Earth's orbital defense stations, weapon systems powered up one by one. Humanity was ready for war, and this time, the enemy had been warned. The Empire's deadline passed without a response. Their answer came in the form of 100 warships dropping out of faster-than-light travel near Mars' orbit. Each ship was massive, gleaming with golden-purple energy shields, their weapons already charging. Captain Tom Mills stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Thunder, watching the Imperial fleet's formation. His small squadron of just 10 ships seemed tiny in comparison. The Thunder itself was smaller than even the Empire's support vessels. "They're broadcasting their demand for surrender," reported his communications officer. Mills smiled. "Send them our response." A single message flashed across space. "Run." The Imperial fleet moved forward in perfect formation, exactly as their military manuals had dictated for 10,000 years. They expected Earth's ships to either flee or be destroyed in the first volley. They didn't expect what happened next. "Launch Operation Hornet's Nest," Mills commanded. His ships scattered in seemingly random directions, each following flight paths that looked like panic, but were actually carefully planned patterns. The Imperial ships fired their first shots, massive energy beams that could cut through mountains, but the human vessels weren't there anymore. They moved like fighters rather than warships, using maneuvers developed from centuries of aerial combat. "Phase 2, Mills ordered. "Show them what Earth ships can really do." The Thunder suddenly changed direction, flying straight toward the Imperial formation. The enemy commanders laughed at what seemed like a suicide run. Their sensors showed the Thunder's weapons were barely strong enough to scratch their shields. What their sensors didn't show were the thousands of tiny objects the Thunder had been releasing during its erratic flight path. "Mines armed," reported the weapons officer. "They still haven't detected them." Mills waited until his ship was almost within the Empire's firing range. "Detonate." Space lit up as thousands of micromines exploded simultaneously. Each one was small, but they had been positioned perfectly. The Imperial shields, designed to stop large energy impacts, couldn't handle thousands of tiny explosions occurring at precisely calculated points. 3 Imperial ships lost shields. Before they could recover, the Thunder launched its real weapons, missiles carrying warheads based on technology the Empire had never encountered. "Fire phase shifters," Mills commanded. The missiles passed straight through the remaining Imperial shields as if they weren't there. The Empire had built their defenses expecting energy weapons and physical impacts. They never imagined someone would develop weapons that could briefly shift out of normal space-time. 5 Imperial ships exploded before they realized what was happening. "All ships, begin attack pattern Delta," Mills broadcast to his squadron. The human ships moved in perfect coordination, each one applying tactics learned from different eras of warfare. One used World War I submarine attack strategies. Another copied the hit-and-run tactics of ancient horse archers. A third employed modern fighter jet engagement patterns. The Imperial fleet's perfect formation became their weakness. They had never needed to change their tactics, never had to adapt to unexpected strategies. Their ships crowded together, getting in each other's way as they tried to track the agile Earth vessels. "They're launching fighters," reported Mills' tactical officer. "Perfect." Mills opened a channel to Earth Defense Command. "Begin Operation Flytrap." Hidden among Mars asteroids, Earth's real fleet powered up. While the Empire had focused on Mills' squadron, 30 more ships had moved into position. They emerged from hiding just as the Imperial fighters spread out from their carriers. The battle turned into chaos, exactly as Earth had planned. Imperial fighters found themselves caught between multiple forces, unable to maintain formation. Their larger ships, trying to provide cover fire, hit their own vessels as often as they hit Earth ships. Mills watched as the mighty Imperial fleet fell into complete disarray. "Send the message," he ordered. Every Imperial ship received the same transmission. "This was just our greeting. Still want to continue?" The Imperial fleet retreated 30 minutes later, leaving behind 27 destroyed ships. They had lost more vessels in one battle than in the previous 1,000 years combined. As the Empire's ships disappeared into faster-than-light travel, Mills opened a channel to Earth. "Admiral Drake, the test battle is complete. They fought exactly as the simulations predicted. No adaptation, no tactical flexibility." "Good work, Captain," Drake's voice came back. "But this was just the beginning. They'll be back, and next time they won't underestimate us." Mills looked at the debris field that had once been part of the Imperial fleet. "That's exactly what we're counting on, sir. Let them come back angry. Angry enemies make mistakes." The Earth fleet regrouped, already preparing for the Empire's return. Humanity had just won its first interstellar battle, but everyone knew the real war was just beginning. The Imperial High Command's response to their first defeat was predictable. They sent 1,000 ships. The massive fleet emerged from hyperspace like a metal wall, stretching across Earth's entire orbital view. Their ships now moved in tighter formations, shields overlapping, a direct response to the tactics used in the first battle. In his underground laboratory beneath the Pacific Ocean, Professor Robert Reed watched the incoming fleet on multiple screens. The 70-year-old scientist had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. Around him, dozens of scientists monitored equipment that the Empire wouldn't even recognize as weapons. "They're adapting." Reed spoke into his comm unit, "but only to what they've already seen." Admiral Drake's voice crackled back. "Then it's time to show them something new. Are the quantum torpedoes ready?" Reed looked at the rows of silver cylinders in the launch bay below his control room. Each one contained technology developed from a century of nuclear research, but taken in a direction the Empire had never considered. "Ready, Admiral. We have enough to give them quite a surprise." Above Earth, the Imperial fleet began their attack. Their energy weapons lit up space like artificial stars, expecting to overwhelm Earth's defenses through sheer firepower. Their sensors showed Earth's military satellites powering up standard shield systems. What they didn't detect were the hundreds of stealth platforms hiding in plain sight, disguised as communication satellites and space debris. Each one carried a single quantum torpedo. "All stations." Drake's voice echoed across all Earth defense channels. "Execute Operation Shattered Mirror." Reed pressed his authorization code into the console. Across Earth's orbit, the stealth platforms revealed themselves. The Imperial fleet's sensors barely had time to register the new threats before the quantum torpedoes launched. The weapons moved unlike anything the Empire had seen before. Instead of traveling in straight lines, they seemed to bend space around themselves. When Imperial ships fired on them, the shots passed right through. "They're trying to adapt their shields," Reed reported, watching the sensor readings. "But they don't understand what they're dealing with." The quantum torpedoes struck their targets. Instead of exploding, they created spheres of altered spacetime. Imperial shields, designed to stop energy and matter, were useless against weapons that temporarily removed their targets from normal space. 30 Imperial ships simply vanished, their matter scattered across quantum states. The Empire's response was to launch fighters, thousands of them. "Phase 2, Drake ordered. Reed activated Earth's next surprise. Hidden factories on the moon powered up, launching swarms of automated drones. These weren't the crude remote vehicles the Empire expected. Each one carried a human-level AI, programmed with centuries of aerial combat knowledge. "Releasing the dogs of war," Reed announced. The drones engaged the Imperial fighters using every air combat maneuver humans had ever developed. They pulled impossible turns, used debris as cover, and adapted their tactics in real time. Imperial pilots, trained to follow strict combat protocols, found themselves overwhelmed by enemies that fought with both machine precision and human creativity. "Sir," Reed's assistant called out, "they're trying to scan our quantum technology." Reed smiled. "Let them. Every scan will show them something different. That's the beauty of quantum mechanics. The act of observation changes what you're observing." The battle in orbit turned into chaos. Imperial ships, trying to maintain their rigid formations, became easy targets for Earth's constantly adapting forces. Their own size and numbers worked against them as they struggled to maneuver in the increasingly cluttered battlefield. "They're launching their super weapon," someone shouted. A massive energy beam, powerful enough to crack a planet's crust, shot from the Imperial flagship. Reed pressed another button. "Show them why we thank Hollywood." Dozens of holographic projectors activated, creating multiple images of Earth. The superweapon's beam passed through a fake image while the real Earth remained safe. A trick invented for movie special effects had just defeated the Empire's ultimate weapon. "Send the message," Drake ordered. Every Imperial commander received the same transmission. "We've spent centuries imagining ways to fight you. Everything you see in movies, every science fiction story, they were all preparation. Still think we're primitive." The Imperial fleet retreated 2 hours later, having lost over 100 ships. As they fled, Reed looked at his monitor showing quantum readings across the solar system. "They'll be back," he said, "and they'll think they understand our technology now." Drake's response was calm. "Good. Let them think that. Because what they've seen today isn't even our best work. Humanity has been preparing for this fight since we first looked up at the stars and wondered, what if they're hostile?" In his lab, Reed began preparing Earth's next set of surprises. The Empire had just learned that humans weren't merely soldiers. They were innovators who had turned their dreams of space warfare into reality. The Empire's response to their second defeat changed the scale of the war entirely. 10,000 ships, a quarter of their total fleet, emerged from hyperspace across the solar system. They didn't cluster together this time. Instead, they spread out in a sphere around Earth, blocking all possible escape routes. General Mark Thompson stood in Earth's main command center, watching the holographic display of enemy positions. At 55, he had spent 30 years studying historical military tactics. Now he would use that knowledge to fight the largest space battle in human history. "They think they have us surrounded," Thompson said to his staff. "Time to show them why that's exactly what we wanted." The Imperial commander's voice boomed across all frequencies. "Your tricks won't work against an army this size. Surrender now, and we will be merciful." Thompson picked up his command microphone. "Let me tell you a story about Earth's history. In 1942, during World War II, a much smaller force used submarines to defeat a larger navy. We've had 80 years to improve that strategy." He pressed a button, and Earth's real defense plan activated. Across the solar system, thousands of automated stations hidden in asteroids powered up. Each one had been placed years ago, waiting for this moment. The Empire had no idea that humans had turned the entire solar system into one massive trap. "Begin Operation Deep Storm," Thompson ordered. Earth's visible fleet, 500 ships, split into small groups of 3 to 5 vessels each. The Imperial fleet commanders laughed at what seemed like desperate, disorganized resistance. Their laughter stopped when the humans' true strategy became clear. Each small group of Earth ships acted like a World War II wolf pack of submarines. They struck from multiple directions, fired their weapons, and vanished into fields of sensor-blocking debris before the Empire could respond. Group 7 reporting successful hits. Group 13, 3 enemy ships disabled. Group 22, moving to next target zone. The battle reports kept coming as Earth's ships struck again and again. The Empire's spread-out formation, designed to trap Earth's forces, now worked against them. Their ships were too far apart to support each other effectively. "They're adapting," reported Thompson's tactical officer, starting to group their ships together. Thompson smiled. Just as predicted. Launch Phase 2. The hidden asteroid stations activated their gravity weapons. Technology based on Earth's centuries of gravity research created zones of distorted space throughout the solar system. Imperial ships, trying to group up, found themselves pulled apart or pushed together by invisible forces. "Sir, they're launching their fighter screens," another officer called out. "Perfect. Time to show them why we studied insect swarms." Thompson activated Earth's drone fleet, not thousands of drones, but millions. Each one was smaller than a car, barely visible on Imperial sensors. They moved like bees defending their hive, swarming around Imperial ships in patterns developed by studying Earth's most aggressive insect species. The Empire's fighters, trained to fight traditional, they phased entire sections of the Imperial fleet into different dimensions. Ships that had stood together in perfect formation simply vanished, creating massive gaps in the Empire's lines. In the chaos that followed, Earth's forces struck from all directions. Wolf pack tactics, drone swarms, and gravity weapons hit the remaining Imperial ships from every angle. The mighty armada that had arrived to crush Earth began to break apart. "Send the message," Thompson ordered. Every Imperial commander received the same transmission. "Every war in human history taught us something. Today, you learned all those lessons at once. Retreat now, or the next lesson will be your last." 3 hours later, the Empire's fleet fled in disorder, leaving behind over 3,000 destroyed ships. As they vanished into hyperspace, Thompson turned to his staff. "They'll be back," he said. "But now, they know what it means to fight humans, and word of this battle will spread across their empire." Commander Jack Parker stood on the bridge of the Earth ship Liberty, looking at representatives from 12 alien species gathered in the ship's conference room through a viewing screen. Each of them had once been conquered by the Empire. Now they were here to learn how to fight back. "Your people have done the impossible," said the tall, blue-skinned delegate from the Centauri system. "The Empire lost half its attack fleet in your system. We want to know how." Parker nodded to his crew, and the lights dimmed. A holographic display activated, showing Earth's military history. "The key isn't just the weapons," Parker explained. "It's how you think about fighting. The Empire wins because everyone fights the way the Empire teaches. We're going to teach you how to fight like humans." The next 12 hours changed the fate of the galaxy. Parker showed them World War I resistance tactics, how small groups could fight larger forces. He demonstrated guerrilla warfare strategies that Earth's armies had used in forests and jungles. He explained how modern armies used electronic warfare to confuse enemy communications. "But we're not soldiers," said another delegate, a reptilian being from a mining colony. "We're merchants, miners, farmers." Parker smiled. "So we're Earth's greatest resistance fighters. Let me show you something." He played historical footage of ordinary people fighting against overwhelming odds. French resistance members derailing trains with simple explosives, Vietnamese farmers setting ingenious traps, modern protesters using social media to outmaneuver larger forces. "The Empire thinks war is about huge ships and powerful weapons," Parker said. "But humans learned long ago that real power comes from here." He tapped his head. "And here." He pointed to his heart. The aliens watched in amazement as Parker's crew demonstrated simple but effective tactics: how to turn mining tools into weapons, how to use cargo ships as hiding places for fighters, how to coordinate attacks using coded messages that looked like normal trade data. "The Empire's greatest weakness," Parker explained, "is that they expect everyone to fight like they do. They've forgotten how to handle enemies who break their rules." In the following days, the revolution began. On a farming world, cargo ships reported engine troubles and drifted off course, only to drop supplies to rebellion forces. In the asteroid mines, Workers began using their cutting tools to create hidden weapons caches. Space station crews learned to pass messages through apparently routine maintenance signals. The Empire's response was predictable. They sent warships to maintain order. But this time, they faced enemies using human tactics. Mining ships performed suicide runs, their holds full of explosives instead of ore. Space stations launched clouds of debris that looked random but were carefully positioned to disable Imperial shields. Farming colonies used their atmospheric processors to create sensor-blocking storms. "Sir," Parker's communications officer called out, "we're getting reports from across Imperial space. 30 systems have declared independence in the last hour alone." Parker watched the tactical display as more and more systems joined the rebellion. The Empire's forces, spread thin trying to control thousands of worlds, couldn't handle attacks coming from everywhere at once. "They're doing better than we expected," Parker told Earth Command through a secure channel. "These people have centuries of anger built up. All they needed was to know they could fight back." The Empire tried to adapt, but they faced a problem they'd never encountered before. An enemy that fought thousands of different ways. Every system used different tactics, learned from humanity's long history of warfare. There was no single strategy they could use to counter all the threats. "Sir," his tactical officer shouted, "the Empire's Third Fleet just surrendered to the miners in the Rigel system. They're saying they want to learn how to fight like humans." Parker smiled. This was another lesson from Earth's history. Sometimes the best victory comes when your enemies decide to become your students. He opened a channel to all rebel forces. "Remember what we taught you. The Empire thinks war is about power, but humans know it's about will. They fight because they're ordered to. You're fighting for freedom. That makes you stronger than their entire fleet." Across the galaxy, the Empire's grip began to crumble. Planets that had been conquered for thousands of years raised their own flags again. Trade routes became rebel supply lines. Imperial warships found themselves attacked by enemies they couldn't see or predict. "Send word to Earth," Parker ordered. "Tell them the revolution isn't just spreading, it's evolving. These people aren't just copying our tactics anymore, they're creating their own." The Empire, which had ruled through fear and rigid control for 50,000 years, faced its worst nightmare: an entire galaxy learning to fight with human ingenuity and determination. The Imperial Palace on Centaurus Prime had stood for 50,000 years. Its crystal spires had watched over the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Now it watched the end of its own empire. Admiral Drake walked through its massive golden doors, his footsteps echoing in halls built for beings 3 times human size. Lord Vale waited in the throne room, no longer wearing his ornate robes. Instead, he wore simple military clothing, his gray skin looking older and tired. 6 months, Vale said as Drake approached. "In 6 months, you didn't just defeat us. You changed the entire galaxy." Drake stopped at the bottom of the steps leading to the Imperial throne. Above them, through the transparent ceiling, hundreds of ships from dozens of species filled the sky. Earth vessels flew alongside newly built rebel ships, their combined fleet a symbol of the galaxy's transformation. "We tried to warn you," Drake said simply. Vale nodded slowly. "The warning wasn't what we thought. Run. We thought it was fear. It was mercy, wasn't it? You were trying to save us from this." "We knew what would happen," Drake agreed. "Humanity spent centuries imagining this moment. We knew that once we showed others how to fight back, the Empire couldn't survive." The massive display screens around the throne room showed scenes from across the galaxy. Former Imperial worlds celebrated their freedom. Ships that had once feared to leave their home systems now flew proudly through space. Species that had been enemies under Imperial rule now worked together, learning from each other. "Tell me something," Vale said, stepping down from his throne. "How did humans become so skilled at warfare? What made your species different?" Drake thought for a moment. "We never stopped fighting ourselves. Every war taught us new lessons. Every battle showed us new ways to win. or lose. While the Empire spent 50,000 years getting comfortable, humanity spent 10,000 years getting ready. Ready for what? For anything. We knew someday we'd meet others in space. We hoped they'd be friends. Drake gestured at the throne room. But we prepared in case they weren't. Vale walked to a window, watching the fleet above. And now? What happens to the galaxy now that you've taught everyone to fight like humans? Now we teach them something even more important, Drake replied. How to live in peace. A group of delegates entered the throne room, representatives from worlds that had been both imperial subjects and rebels. They carried the new peace treaty, a document that would transform the Empire into a confederation of free worlds. The first rule, Drake explained, is that every species governs itself. The second is that we defend each other. Earth will lead the combined fleet, not to control, but to protect. And the Empire's technology, our weapons, Vale asked, will be studied and shared. But more importantly, we'll share something else. Culture, art, music, stories. Humanity didn't just prepare for war. We spent centuries imagining how different species could live together. Now we can make those dreams real. The delegates began signing the treaty. Each signature represented a world choosing its own path for the first time in thousands of years. Vale watched, understanding finally showing in his eyes. You weren't just better warriors, he said. You were better dreamers. While we built an empire, you built hope. Drake nodded. That's humanity's real strength. We never stop imagining better ways to live, or fight, if we have to. Now the galaxy can do both. As the ceremony ended, Drake's communicator buzzed. A message from Earth Command appeared. First Joint Human-Alien Military Academy opening next month. Your thoughts on the curriculum? Drake smiled. They would teach the galaxy's species how to defend themselves, but also how to build something greater than the Empire had ever been. A civilization where strength protected freedom instead of destroying it. One last question, Vale said as Drake prepared to leave. If we had retreated when you first warned us, if we had run, what would humans have done? Exactly what we're doing now, Drake replied. We would have kept preparing, kept improving, kept imagining. The only difference is how many lives would have been saved. He looked up at the ships overhead, Earth vessels flying alongside their former enemies, now allies. The Empire taught the galaxy how to serve, Drake said. Humanity will teach it how to grow. And if another threat ever comes from beyond the stars, they'll find something unprecedented. A galaxy that knows how to fight like humans, but dreams like 1,000 species. The sun set on the imperial capital, but it wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. The dawn of an age where humanity's greatest victory wasn't defeating an empire, but showing the galaxy a better way to live.